welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging across the construction industry. The show is brought to you in partnership with Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by returning guests, Emma O'Donoghue and John Foley, owners of Lifesize Plans in Ireland. Emma and John, welcome back. I can't believe it's been more than a year since we've last spoken on this show.
It feels like 10.
That sounds predictably normal for startup. So, well, first of all, for anybody who was not familiar, maybe didn't hear your show last year, remind people, what is Lifesize Plans?
Yes, so Lifesize Plans is a facility where we enable people to be able to visualize their project, whether it's a private residential or commercial project, whereby we project their architectural plans at a life-size scale, enabling clients and their stakeholders to physically step into their design and experience it at a one-to-one scale.
I remember that maybe 18 months ago or 15 months ago, I sought you guys out when I came across this because this is the solution I've always needed. I am not from I'm not from a design background. I find it really difficult to read or interpret 2D plans. I'm the person who needs to physically move furniture to see what it's going to look like in a corner, also to see if it fits, but that's a different part of my brain. But I think that that's much more common than people in the industry realize, and I think it's much more common for people in the industry. So, like, maybe talk to us about the experiences. Who is using it in the first year of your business?
I would say our biggest market has been the residential, either doing an extension on their own home or building a one-off house. So for them, we bring in all the walls, all the furniture, like you say, to see does it fit, the angles that they're going to have, the flow of the space. And we literally go through each room. And because the furniture and walls are movable while they're here, if there's something that they're not 100% about, we can try it in different ways so they can get a sense of what that's like. And we do that all during the session for them. So it's a very interactive session as well.
Do you know, I was excited about the idea of you guys opening up, but a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to walk through it myself, and it was so much better than I expected in a couple of key ways. So not just that you really get a sense of the scale of the size of operation you have there, but actually, when we were in there, John, you pulled across a curtain and it showed us all of this furniture on casters and walls. So you don't just project in real size the rooms and the dimensions. You actually essentially build walls and put in furniture, double beds, king size beds, lockers, all of the furniture, tables, chairs that you would need to try not just be in the physical space, but actually to understand how your furniture will look in that physical space.
And that's been hugely influential for us, because when we listen to the customers that come in, it's very evident of the impact and the role that the furniture, the walls, we've had kitchens made up, and the impact that that has on the customer to be able to visualize the space and to be able to anticipate themselves living in the space, you know, whether they're cooking dinner or interacting with their family over at the dinner table, or even looking through with their sight lines into a playroom where kids may be playing. It enables them to experience and really immerse themselves in the design and understand the design in a whole new dimension to reading it off traditional 2D drawings. So that's been a huge learning for us that we've taken on board.
And it wasn't something that we did from the start. We didn't bring in all of the furniture at the start. At the start, we used to start with a blank plan and we would do a room if there was an issue. But from seeing the customers in the space, the difference it made having everything done before they arrived, it just really brought it home for them. It closes in the room so they can stand one side, someone over the other, and really get a sense. This is your open plan kitchen. This is the size of it. And we just thought it was a very important element of what we do.
And like when you visited us, like we start every walkthrough from the observation deck. So it's kind of like you're getting a bird's eye view or a different perspective of the project, just looking in like a fly on the wall. And that enables people to see the overall layout, the flow from where you enter the property through to the corridors, where the stairs is, and how the space functions. And for people that are investing, you know, 400,000 or 500,000 into their dream home, it enables them to really see, one, where their money is going, two, it brings their project to life, and three, it enables them to make whatever changes that they may feel is necessary to create, you know, their dream
How
home.
they live.
Yeah. Well, do you know, one of the things that surprised me during my walkthrough was when we started up on the observation deck and you look down, you think, yeah, this is a large house. You know, it looks big, but you're still not getting the sense of it. And then when you walk down and you walk into the room and you trace the steps of the room, it feels different. So actually, it's amazing. Even being in the space looking down is different to being on the ground walking around. And actually, in terms of understanding then the space, you refer to this maybe prompting changes. You know, what kind of changes have you seen? Like what's the experience of people as they're using this, as you've observed?
Yeah, so it varies by the client, and we do a release. So for every walkthrough, when we start off in the observation deck, we basically reveal the plans to them for the first times in the showroom. And we're very intuitively, you know, observing the customer and seeing what the reaction is like. And very quickly, as they walk through the space, because we both attend every session with them, you're able to read very quickly whether they're aligned with the design in terms of how the space is working or whether they want to change it. And that just happens organically throughout the process. And to enable, I suppose, them to convey what they want to do, we capture whatever changes that, you know, our clients make during the session.
With residential clients, though, I would say a big amount of time is spent bathrooms, kitchen, master bedroom.
And for an awful lot of clients as well, they have this impression that, you know what, I can work out where the toilet's going to go when we're building. And without knowing, you know, the construction process and, you know, that the waste pipes are going in with the foundations and the hardcore and the slab, that it's not actually an option to move your toilet once you know your walls are going up. It's all these decisions need to be locked down early. So it's given people, I suppose, the ability to have that influence on their design to make sure that it's right for them.
I think it's really interesting when we speak to particularly startups in the prop tech or construction tech, because when we meet a startup team, we always love to see teams rather than founders. And when we're looking at a team, we're always looking for kind of this, you don't want everybody coming from the same discipline or having the same approach. So, you know, obviously the ideal, we always think of it like an old milking parlor stool. Like if you have somebody who has the domain knowledge, you have somebody who has technical knowledge, and you have somebody that has a really strong commercial acumen, then, you know, your odds of succeeding are so much higher. But for a startup like this, and obviously I suppose startup probably isn't the right term, because you went down the franchise model with a franchise from the other side of the world and bringing it over to Ireland. But even between you as a founding team, you very different skill sets. So Emma, you're like, obviously, you know, you're not coming, well, no, but you're not coming from a design perspective. Does that make a difference when you're meeting people? Because, you know, John, you've worked in design, you've worked in the industry, so you have design knowledge, but technical knowledge. But I presume that maybe you don't have the same challenge that many people walking through the space do, that you can visualize it without having to do that.
And I think that's where it's useful for me to be able, because sometimes people come in and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's grand. But my background is nursing, so I would say I'm quite good at reading people. So grand covers a multitude of things, but you can tell when somebody's not happy with a space. And if I don't feel they're necessarily opening up about what they're concerned about, I always will bring in, this came about because I couldn't visualize a job we were doing at home, to give them that, to feel at ease that it's not, this is a big issue for lots of people that they can't visualize. And it's not a problem to say that, and let's work through it. And I probably will linger sometimes in rooms with people because I know we haven't hit the nail on the head for them. So I encourage them to make lots of changes where John might be like, we need to move it along. So, but you know, there's a balance there. And we find as well, when people come in, they'll resonate more with John or with myself. It's nice that there's an option there too.
Yeah. I think that's always the way. And I suppose I'm conscious that you said that, you know, people spend the most amount of time in kind of the bathrooms, kitchen, and master bedroom. So kitchen, I understand, for people who you believe the kitchen is the heart of the home. That our kitchen is not the heart of our home at all. But But I understand for people, you know, who are that so inclined that it might be the master bedroom. I absolutely understand, because you just want that to be a space you sink into. The bathroom, or why are people so obsessed with bathrooms?
It's always it's where the toilet is. A lot of times when they open the door, the toilet's straight in front of them, and that could be as they're coming through the hallway, and they want to switch that around. And there's an architect who uses all the time, and every time he's like, "Why is it the bathrooms?" But we spend ages in them, particularly the main bathroom.
And walk-in wardrobes, because we have all of the units made, and
Yeah.
when people see, you know, a little box on a sheet of paper, that's the walk-in wardrobe, they're like, okay, yeah, that works. And then they see the units, and then you can see them, you know,
What do I have now?
visualizing their wardrobes at home. How much clothes do I have? How much clothes do you have? Will this fit? And then they're going, we need more wardrobe space. And it's a process that's very practical, and it just enables them to, okay, let's balance this, that we get it right. So
at what stage do you recommend? I suppose I feel like maybe we're focusing a lot on maybe not necessarily self-builders, but people who are just doing kind of a one-off home. But in terms of, say, have you worked with developers who are looking at whole schemes that might have a few different templates of houses?
Would you believe, I would say developers have been the quickest adapters to using our service
From a commercial side.
a commercial side. And, you know, like even at the start of this year, there was new legislation introduced about compact settlement and planning guidelines from the minister. And for an awful lot of developers, they need to, you know, create a new rule book, create new development types and new layouts. And we've seen quite a few developers coming in and utilizing our space as a testing ground for new schemes that they're going to bring to the market. So that's an example, I suppose, of one of the ways that we've seen developers use it. We've also seen them using it on new schemes that they're bringing to the market, and enabling their estate agent to come in, review the layout of the design and whether or not this scheme
can sell in that area.
Yeah, well,
actually, you bring up a really good point, not just around the compact settlements and kind of that is effectively requiring a whole new rule book for developers and project owners, but actually it kind of takes us back a step then in terms of planning, because obviously we're moving towards a 3D planning system. So for people who might struggle to get there, would you have many planners, whether public or private sector, coming through to help understand things? Or is that, I feel like this is maybe something that public sector planners might be slow to be able to resource, but yet we're getting massive benefit from. So actually, have you seen planners from either public or private sector take this up?
Not so much planners, but what we have seen quite a lot of is we've seen obviously developers coming in with their architects. I think it's going to take longer to get, you know, planners in here, because I think there's a lot more layers that goes with getting them in here, and there's a lot of stakeholders that are involved in the process.
But we find as people from the commercial side come in, like we never thought of here necessarily as for selling off plan, but the developers who've come through, they've seen that, and the agents that are coming through, they see that. So as more of the commercial side comes through, there will be an expansion of the services that we are offering here.
It's interesting to hear you say you wouldn't have seen off plan, because actually when I saw your service, that was the first thing I thought of. Actually, it's so much easier than kitting out necessarily a showroom if you can effectively create showrooms.
Yeah.
Here, has that started to happen now?
Would you believe in the last 3 months we've had a very high level of engagement from the estate agents, and, you know, developers now are starting to look at us as a tool to enable them to sell off plan and essentially reduce, you know, their commercial borrowing against developments, which, you know, I think it's fantastic. It's going to be a really unique selling point for them.
It makes total sense. So actually, let's stick with the kind of the larger scale schemes for the moment, and actually tell me, at what stages are you seeing people come in? So, for example, have you seen a project owner maybe bring a funder through, or to try kind of bring their vision to life to get the funding they need to move forward?
Yeah, so we've seen that from the perspective of developers with funders, and that enables them to use the space as a marketing suite. We've seen, without naming, but we've seen approved housing bodies starting to come in to use the space as well, which is a really interesting area. And especially with the latest budget that's after been announced, I think that will only promote it and grow that area of the business for us.
In terms of the approved housing bodies, I'm really interested to hear they're going in, because I think the approved housing bodies have really taken a massive step forward in terms of innovating the design. So they're actually they do smaller homes very well, and traditionally it was the private sector did smaller homes very well, and social housing tended to need to be larger because it wasn't always the smartest design. That's completely flipped now. So actually, when approved housing bodies are coming to you, are they coming with a focus on trying to nail down the best design, or are they looking for kind of flexible design?
More design optimization, and then with the like of the developers that are coming in, they're using it as essentially stakeholder management tool. So in a short space of time, they can come in, have a session, and be able to convey exactly what the scheme layout is going to be like in terms of how they approach it and deliver it.
And you can get through an awful lot in the space here. Like, we've had developers come in for a half-day session and we've got through 24 house plans with them.
Wow.
So, I mean, because it's there, they can walk it, they can get the decisions made quickly, and we move it along, and we always work ahead of them. Do you know, that sort of way? So you can get an awful lot done in a half day or a full day here that could take weeks of meetings offsite.
Tell me, what has surprised you guys? Like, you know, when you have people coming through, whether it's kind of on the kind of one-off or the project teams walking through, what has surprised you that maybe you weren't expecting when you started the business? Or what have you, not necessarily what you've learned about the business, but what have you learned about the people who are walking through your facility?
Well, I suppose on the residential side, I don't know.
Well, what surprised me the most, I suppose, for a lot of the private residential especially, is how, I suppose, how focused they are on planning permission rather than the design. So at times they can get so involved in the design, and then it becomes the goal now is planning, and they're so focused on planning that they take their eye off of the design, and it becomes this huge obstacle that they need to get over. And for some clients that we see coming in, it can take years, and you know, everyone has their own unique story around planning. But that for me kind of stands out as a very unique aspect of it. And especially like for us as well, the first year has taken longer than we would have anticipated to, you know, get the engagement from architects. But what we've seen over the first year has been those architects that have come into the space, one, their immediate response is, do you know what, it's taken,
I love this.
Yeah, it's taken some time to get in because they've been so busy. But once they get in and experience it, we understand, you know, how busy architects are and the challenges that they face in terms of, you know, running a successful business. But in addition to that, the amount of design meetings that architects have to go through to convey a design, it enables them to short circuit the amount of design meetings that they have and to fast track their client along their design journey to bring them to the gateway of submitting for planning.
My biggest surprise would be with the residential clients who come through. Sometimes they ask us, why did we do something different to their plans? Like, why did you set it up that way? And we always have to highlight, we never set it up differently. This is the plans, but they never saw that detail. Yeah. Because there's so much detail that they have to sign off. So sometimes they're like, why did you put a double door in there? That was always just a single door. But it's like, no, this is how your plans were presented. It's just something you didn't necessarily pick up off the page. Because they're looking.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And we never ever change the design. It's always laid out as is, but it's a big thing that people pick up on things they never saw before and things they don't necessarily want to keep.
It's interesting as well. Like some clients, when they're in, we would be after walking through maybe, you know, the whole ground floor, and there's another wing to the building, and they're like, right, we're finished. And we're like,
no,
there's a whole, like, you have a whole other wing, and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And it's like, it's like, you know, we get to see some fantastic designs coming through here, and you know, you get some serious design inspiration as well, because you know where this whole idea started was for ourselves doing our own project at home. So you know, we really do get to see some fantastic designs.
And people's motives are different for coming here. Like even with the residential clients, they've got their planning, they've gone to tender, They've got the price, and now they come to us because they need to come down. So they need to remove 20 square meters or whatever the case may be of that house. Other people want to confirm they're happy with the size. So it's very different. And even when people can come in, you can tell maybe one person really wants to be here and the other person might have been dragged here. But halfway through the session, they'll turn and be like, do you know what? This was actually the best thing that we've done. And
I that possibly comes down to, again, those who can visualize and those who can't. I think it is so interesting when you talk about people maybe not fully understanding their plans, because actually, I wonder, do architects even understand when they're presenting plans and getting agreement and getting sign off? Do they know how well their clients understand what they're presenting? Because again, if you can't visualize it, it's very difficult. And I can remember a planning application that was going in for me. And that's why, John, when you said about prioritizing planning over design, I can tell you a number of years ago, I submitted planning and the engineer said, have you worked with an architect or have you got designs? I said, submit whatever you think. We'll get planning and I'll work around.
I'll work with it.
Yeah, you just give me a box and I'll...
And genuinely, that was as much design input I had into the house that I was planning to build. And now, to be fair, I wouldn't have an eye for design, so I wouldn't be giving great input anyway. But it's so interesting. You're right. Because our planning is so broken and fractured at the moment that actually people are prioritizing, right, what can we get planning for? And then we'll work around it, which has to compromise design. But I suppose the element then is, if we have to do that, then you really need to optimize the design inside, which is fine if you understand how to do that. But not understanding the plans as they're presented, I think, is a really important part. And I wonder, we're talking about people who have the luxury of sitting down with an architect, but actually, if you're buying within a development, you're given a brochure of plans and there might be a show house or there might not, but you make your decision based on 3 pages, 3 layouts in a brochure. That's very different.
Yeah, it's a huge decision for people to make.
They know the location they want, but not necessarily what the end product is going to look exactly like. So it does give them that opportunity. So it is definitely something we're moving more into, and it has been developing a lot more, I'd say, the last 2 to 3 months. So we do hope to have our first one of those launched soon.
And so your facility at the moment, just tell people a little about kind of the size of the facility, how it works, where you're located, and maybe plans for this to extend outside of Dublin in time.
Yeah, so at the moment we're just off the Caoimhe Road, so we're right off the M50, so very accessible for people coming from around the country. It's a 6,000 square foot unit, and we've got 3,000 projection on the floor in the showroom, and then we also have a projection wall which we utilize as well, and we put up people's sections, their elevations, so they can look at ceiling heights, window sizes, door heights, and that's 1,500 square foot on the wall that we use as well.
Actually, in terms of that projection wall, I wasn't expecting that the day I went in. So that was brilliant. And full disclosure, I may have had a geriatric chihuahua with me who we got lovely shots of her sitting outside of a virtual front door. That are, again, any of the things that make a house feel like a home or bring plans to life. But actually, afterwards, I was thinking about it as I was driving away from your facility that day. I was driving away and thinking, could the projection wall be used to project the views from certain windows or aspects?
Absolutely. And for some people, we tend to get the images sent across for us. Or
if they've drone footage from the site, it can be a video. The projectors are cinema grade projectors, so they can really project anything. But if there's drone footage that they're going to see, anything like that, we can utilize.
But it's the other aspect as well. So if we've got designers that are developing even, say, a commercial scheme where they're after importing, other buildings around the space, we just plug the model into the projectors and load it up. So during the walkthrough, if we're on, say, level 10 of a development, we can have the views projected from the model out through the main projection wall.
So essentially you would be overlooking, like photorealistic, you'd be overlooking what you would be overlooking at that height.
Yes.
That's a phenomenal service. And let's now take a step back. We've given the industry enough. let's take a step back for the prop tech and construction tech founders who might be sitting in listening to you, and they understand that a year is a kind of a momentous milestone, but it's also a very early milestone. And I mean, you indicated it there that actually traction generally takes longer than you think. And that's all that is so common across most, not just new technologies, but when you're trying to bring in an innovative solution, or you're trying to just improve on a solution that already exists, it takes time. Trust needs to be built, but it can be frustrating when, as a founder, you believe in something so much. This is something you sought out as a solution to a problem you had. It solved a problem, so you fully believe in it. You want to bring it to the wider market. They don't get it, or they don't get it as quickly as you want, or they're not jumping up and down in the way you might have expected initially. Like, talk to me a little bit about that journey of trying to build traction, and where you're hitting points of resistance.
Well, first of all, I'll say I definitely know exactly what you're saying. In the first few months, when there was days when downstairs was empty, we were like, this is so good to be empty.
Yeah.
So what we've been doing since the very start is offering demonstrations to people. So people who are not entirely sure, so whether it's architects who want to come in or developers, will load up one of their own projects so it's relatable. And we do that as kind of the way to get people in the door, because we do think it's one of the things you need to see in person. Videos are great, but here is different when you're actually in it. So that's been a big area that we've been focusing on, is demonstrations to the market.
Yeah, and from the feedback as well, like from some of the leading developers and builders in the country that have been in, they're very open, they're very honest when they come in, that their perception is, do you know what, I'll be open and honest, I don't know what to expect. I'm not sure whether it's a novelty or whether this is going to be
value.
This is going to be a tool that's going to improve our business. And without exception, everyone that has been through the space, the feedback has been very, very good. To the point that it has really given us faith in what we're doing. And I have a very clear vision that this is going to be an integrated part of the design process, first for the private residential sector, and over time for the commercial sector, for areas and clients that require that additional dimension of design understanding.
Yeah, and I like I said earlier in the interview, we're in Ireland, we're moving towards a 3D planning system, and in fact, I just saw Fingal County Council recently won an award for their VR, their virtual reality 3D planning consults, which so we see that this is the direction of travel, and so to make it accessible for the industry, it's just really powerful. So actually, before we finish up today, let's tell the industry how they can get involved, how they can bring people through. And by the way, I'm doing this, but actually, I would suspect most of the industry will have read about you in last week's Sunday Business Post, or the Business Post now, because you actually got the editor of the property supplement out through the facility, and she was blown away by it. So maybe just explain how important it is to get, I suppose, again, for people to have the understanding to go through. So for most startups and founders that they're only in the first year, they don't get to get the property editor of the Business Post walk through there and get a personal demo of their facility. So how important are opportunities like that?
They are really what keeps us going. And Tina Marie was amazing. She came out and we had loaded up a house plan to go through, and we went through it and we did the full customer journey, so she could get a real sense of what an experience is like with us. And it was just fantastic to have that review, to put it out there to the public that this exists. And that's still a big thing for people. They don't necessarily know they can do this service. So getting that exposure that Tina Marie gave us the other day, like it means everything to a business for us.
It's huge. It's absolutely massive. And like the touch points and the conversations, like, we go out, we network, we meet with people, we explain the service, and to get an industry expert like Tina Marie come in.
And then to actually write about it.
And to give her personal view from the experience, having had, years of experience in the industry. Do you know what? It's a validation for one, what we're doing, and two, where we're going.
And the phone was very busy yesterday, which was really nice.
Oh, we're delighted. We're delighted to hear that. And look, one thing I would really add there, because obviously I had engaged with you guys kind of at an early stage and I'd been following your social media, but I actually found the experience of walking through the facility very different to what I was expecting. And actually the projector wall, so the floor was amazing to help visualize space, but the projector wall was the piece I wasn't expecting. And that really brought it all together. So I would absolutely encourage anybody who is thinking of a project across any discipline to maybe check in with you guys. So actually, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so they can check us out on our website, which is lifesizeplans.leinster.com, or they can email us at leinster@lifesizeplans.com.
I mentioned earlier that you guys hold the franchise license for all of Ireland. You're currently operating Life Size Plans Leinster in Dublin. Are there longer term plans to come outside of Leinster?
I would say absolutely. Like, we've welcomed people from Donegal, Cork. Literally, when we signed off on Friday, we had a couple travel all the way from Pennsylvania.
Now they're going to build here, but they're living there.
They're still living in the States. But yeah, look, our core focus is to ensure Life Size Plans Leinster is a huge success. And if we keep going on the trajectory we're going, I think that's a huge opportunity.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. I'm delighted we were able to do kind of this 1 year check-in with you, and I look forward to many more tours of the facility, both for work and for interest. So thank you so much for taking the time today. That was Emma O'Donoghue and John Foley, owners of Life Size Plans in Ireland. My thanks to show producers Carol Tallon and Caoimhe Scully, and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also, thanks to Place Engage for making these conversations possible. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground. In the meantime, please be sure to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows here on iPropertyRadio.com.